Welcome to State of the Offense, complete fantasy football coverage of your favorite team's offense, the Chargers. In the skill positions, the Chargers return all of their primary playmakers from last year, plus they added wide receiver Quentin Johnston from TCU in the first round. On the offensive line, the Chargers bring back 5 of their top 6 linemen from last year. At left tackle, Rashawn Slater's second season was cut short by an injury in Week 3. Slater graded at an 86, which made him the 9th best left tackle in the NFL. 2022 first-rounder left guard Zion Johnson graded at a 74, played in 17 games with a 99.3% snap share. Zion's grade places him in the 14 to 16 range of starting left guards. Center Corey Linsley graded at a 90, which makes him the 3rd best center in the game. Linsley played in 14 games with a 71.4% snap share. 2022 6th-round draft pick Jamaree Salyer graded at a 73 in 14 games played with an 81.9% snap share. Salyer is the projected starter at right guard. He ranked in the 23 to 24 range of starting right guards in the game. The Chargers retained Trey Pipkins to play right tackle. Last year, Pipkins graded at a 68 in 14 games played with a 75% snap share. His ranking is in the 24 to 27 range of starting right tackles. The Chargers have a good offensive line room. They have drafted well in this area over the years. The proficiency of the offense should continue with the good health of the offensive line. Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Wide receiver injuries slowed this offense down last year quite a bit. Justin Herbert played 1,162 snaps last year, but of those 1,162 snaps, he had Mike Williams available for only 703 of those, which was 60.5% of his snaps, and Keenan Allen only played 515 of those snaps for only 44.3%. No offense to Joshua Palmer or Jalen Guyton, but they are not Keenan Allen and Mike Williams for a reason. In spite of this, Justin Herbert still finished as the quarterback 8 in points scored and the quarterback 13 in average points per game. Not only should the top 2 wide receivers play more than they did, but the Chargers bring in their reserve receivers back as well, and they drafted a wide receiver in the first round. Justin Herbert is currently the quarterback 7 drafted, the player 49 overall. I'm higher on Justin Herbert than most. He's my quarterback 4, and I rate him as 34th overall player. There has been some talk about Joe Burrow's calf keeping him out longer than expected. With the Burrow injury and how the situation for Justin Herbert should be better than it was in 2022, this is pretty good news for Justin Herbert fantasy owners. You need to have a top quarterback to win in fantasy football. The likelihood of Justin Herbert being one of the top guys is even better now. When you look at the performance of the top 3 wide receivers from the Chargers, Keenan Allen was the wide receiver 28 in total points and the wide receiver 8 in average points per game. Mike Williams was the wide receiver 33 in total points, and he was the wide receiver 25 in average points per game. Joshua Palmer was the wide receiver 36 in total points and the wide receiver 46 in average points per game. To have 2 receivers that are top 25 guys miss as much time as they did bodes well for Herbert if Allen and Williams are back to a normal snap share. The current average draft position for Keenan Allen is wide receiver 18. Mike Williams is going as the wide receiver 28, and rookie Quentin Johnston is currently the wide receiver 51. How should we be viewing these 3 guys, and is Joshua Palmer still in the picture? Allen was targeted 8.9 times per game last year. Williams was targeted 7.2 times per game last year. Palmer was targeted 6.6. Allen is the possession receiver who will get plenty of points in PPR formats, while Williams is more of the deep threat option. Quentin Johnston is listed ahead of Palmer on the depth chart currently, but rookie wide receivers sometimes aren't completely ready, and they don't necessarily get as many snaps as veterans do. I think that between Palmer and Johnston, and then also tight end Gerald Everett, that they will be far behind Allen and Williams in the pecking order. I would not draft either Johnston nor Palmer. I rate Keenan Allen as my wide receiver 25 and my player 64 overall. Mike Williams is right behind him as my wide receiver 26 and my 65th player overall. I think that if they are both available, they will both produce to high levels, which we are used to seeing. Gerald Everett returns to the Chargers for his 6th season in the NFL. Everett has improved every year of his career. Everett was the tight end 15 in points scored and the tight end 13 in average points per game. He is currently the tight end 19 drafted, though, at the 152 spot. I think that a lot of this drop is predicated on more playing time and more targets going to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I rate Everett as my tight end 17 and my 142nd overall player. If the Chargers wide receivers are banged up again, Everett's career trajectory is going upwards, so he can easily surpass his 2022 production. Austin Ekeler has 63 career touchdowns. 38 of those touchdowns have come within the last 2 seasons. Touchdowns are usually the stat that varies the most. The other area where Ekeler shines is as an elite receiving back. This statistical combination makes Ekeler very appealing to fantasy drafters. Ekeler was the running back 1 in fantasy football last year in both per game and total points scored. Ekeler has had a lot of usage the last few years, and you can't always count on 18 and 20 touchdown seasons for running backs every year. Ekeler has no real threat to him for touches from any other running back on the roster. My view of the Chargers situation in 2023, though, is that the offense will be a lot more balanced, where the receptions and touchdowns are more spread out and moving away from Ekeler and towards Allen and Williams. Ekeler is currently the running back 1 drafted and the 3rd player taken overall. I agree with his ranking, but if Ekeler is my top guy when I pick in the 1st round, I am not necessarily counting on his touchdowns and his reception numbers to replicate the last 2 years. Unfortunately, when you have a player like this available, you always hope that player gives you the output of the previous season, but it's more likely than not that Ekeler will not be the running back 1 again, but those are the risks that we take. Ekeler's backup, Joshua Kelly, had his best season last year. He is someone you should be aware of if anything happens to Ekeler, but he's not worth drafting on his own if Ekeler is getting his usual workload. The Chargers as a fantasy group have the talent, potential, and scheme to produce the most points in the league. Justin Herbert and Austin Ekeler are good enough to finish as the number 1 players at their positions in fantasy football. The wide receivers are reliable and productive. The tight end is getting better every year. Injuries were the problem last year. If the injury bug stays away from the Chargers' main guys, they will score plenty of points. I don't think that any of the Chargers players are getting drafted higher than they deserve, but you have to be cautious about a potential drop for Austin Ekeler because the NFL is a tough league. The Chargers are always mentioned as one of those teams every year because they have one of those guys at quarterback. The offense will be good, but ultimately whether this team goes 9-8 or wins the Super Bowl will ultimately be tied to the performance of their defense and special teams. Luckily for Chargers supporters, it usually means that the team will be playing in some entertaining games every year that matter. Taking over the AFC West is not easy with Kansas City in the way, but if any team in the West has a chance to do it, the Chargers are the likeliest candidate. If you like today's coverage of the Los Angeles Chargers offense, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.